double shot with your favourite cousins, James and Alex Fitzgerald. Cuz I'm just gonna absolute no your first note in here. You want to talk about the weather. We are better than this. We have way more to talk about than the weather, and nobody cares that the Gold Coast saw possibly less than 10 degrees, which I still don't believe you about. Cry me a river immediately.
Now, what I want to talk about off the offset is, from the outset rather, is how well you have started this podcast. Now, it's a late record for those listening out there. We've got Alex in a post-midday kind of mood this afternoon, and let me tell you, that's why she's high energy, ladies and gentlemen. We've got you in your favourite time of the day.
You know what? I've come to be a morning recorder, so now I'm a bit flipped out, and this was on your record, but that's okay. We do what we can to help each other out.
Didn't you once say though that you get 90% of your work in a day done after 3 p.m.?
No, that's categorically correct. Yes, but I don't consider the podcast work. I consider it hanging out and catching up with one of my good mates. Cuz just catch up. We don't catch up enough.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We may as well just catch up.
Yeah, you're right. No, and you don't. I mean, admittedly, you don't consider it work because you don't have to prepare for it. But in any event, for me, putting up the notes,
who know,
doing a bit of research, a bit more work.
Yeah. Hey, you said you wanted a pop quiz. I have come today with a pop quiz because I live to make you happy whilst we record it. So this is absolutely the most random pop quiz of all time, but I feel like a lovely audience of one, Fletcher Davies. No, just kidding. We have actually a much bigger audience than that great man. But I've got some really random questions for you. All right, here we go. First one.
All right.
Not a pop quiz. Just want you to answer it. First thing you would cut from your budget knowing the cost of living is going to rise?
First thing.
JB, insert thinking music.
First thing cut from my budget. I'd probably go and try and shave the cost of a few items. I'd probably not necessarily go a hard cut on anything. I'd probably try and maybe get a cheaper insurance premium, maybe get a cheaper, meal. For example, might not indulge in a nice restaurant. Might just go to McDonald's. I don't know.
More of a servo donut than a Krispy Kreme donut, perhaps.
Yeah, more rather than the artisan bakery pink donut, I'll go to something like a Brumbies.
Hang on. Sorry, did you say artisan instead of artesian?
No, up in Queensland, that's what we call them.
Do you mean artesian bakery?
I think you'll find up in Queensland we call them artisans.
One of us is wrong, and to be honest, I don't even want to find out who it is, but artesian is much better.
I think you'll find in Queensland...
the artesian bakery.
I think you'll find in Queensland that they find that to be an insult and would prefer to be called artisans.
Okay, well,
so be
maybe
careful.
That's
be careful what you say, depending on where you are.
That's right. Just be careful all the time. Just act with caution in everything that you do. Okay, so
what would you cut? Come on.
Food. Now, food would be the first one because I am a little bit spendy on my food. I just ordered Uber Eats then. I flew in last night from Queensland and of course I am not prepared at all. But I will be from tonight. But I'm always on the back foot on my food for the week. I'm very organised in some aspects of my life and very disorganised in other aspects. So food would be number one. I also think my health may also benefit greatly, as well as the old bank account on that one. All right. What do you think the world's most expensive postage stamp of the collectible variety sold for?
Couldn't be any less than $3 million.
All I'm going to say, just as one more hint, is that it's in the early 1900s, and for some reason I've learnt that the single-coloured ones, not multiple colour, are worth more. You have one more guess, sir. Sold at auction.
Well,
obviously an avid collector.
$3 million, was that too high or too low?
Too low. Way too low.
Okay. I'll go $13 million. I'll add 10 mil to it.
11 million smackaroonies.
Wow. For a postage stamp?
Yes, I know.
Geez, you wouldn't want to accidentally use it, would you?
No, that's right. Right, third question, and this is it for the pop quiz. Was it you on the hike last week dropping more trails than the trail we were walking that I was smelling the back end of? Was that you? Yes or no? Put the interrogation lights on him.
I've got a healthy digestive system and I'll leave it at that.
Mate, that's the last time on an executive retreat I walk at the back of the hiking trail of 10 people. Let me give you the red hot tip. All you blokes were laughing at the front and I was not laughing. I was thinking, do trees give off methane now or one of these sneaky heads? Anyway.
Very good.
That was very fun. So there's your little pop quiz. But you've got the fun fact of the week, which could also educate the people.
Yeah, okay. So this one here is a really interesting one because it could come in handy if you're playing Scrabble or one of those games. Which world capital, so capital city in the world, is last in alphabetical order?
Okay, so
you can see the notes, but
no,
but
can I just say, when I read the notes earlier, I actually guessed it in my head before I saw the answer. So I'll tell you what my first guess was.
Okay.
It was Zurich in
Zurich.
Switzerland?
Mustn't be the capital.
I don't know if that's a capital. It mustn't be a capital.
Mustn't be the capital.
What is it?
It does start with Z though, and it's Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia.
Yes, I know Zagreb. I had to go get a fill-in passport there when my passport got stolen when I was at a festival in Croatia back in 2015. Yeah,
I thought Dubrovnik was the capital of Croatia, but obviously not.
NFI. All right, okay. Stat fact. We're gonna play the stat fact song. Da 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 da. Stat fact.
The stat man.
Stat fact.
What do you got for us?
All right, so this one is actually a bit more relevant to our podcast here. We've gone completely off script, but it is what it is. Stat fact of the week. 64% of advertised jobs online right now are advertised as hybrid jobs. I'm not surprised at all, but I love to see a stat that supports what we thought. So that's a hybrid. Hey, come in a few days. Hey, work from home a few days. We don't mind. And I don't think in this 3.9% unemployment market that they can afford to be like, we want you in 5 days a week anyways. So if that's what's helping people get in, there might be a few other fringe benefits.
Out of curiosity, was there a city-by-city breakdown?
No. No. That would be very interesting, though, because I feel like in Queensland where you guys are, it would be perhaps less so. Melbourne City, though, I reckon the bulk would be hybrids.
I would have thought, put it this way, I would have thought that it's directly proportionate to the time of the commute in terms of how long it takes to commute. I would have thought the longer the commute, the more likely you have to offer the hybrid situation.
Yeah, but if you're a capital city, like working office, you don't know if someone's going to have a long commute unless it'd be person by person.
Could go the other way. It could be that places like Sunshine Coast or those real lifestyle destinations, even Perth, maybe they've got more of a hybrid situation going.
The lifestyle people.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, tell us here, what have you got about the average build time blowout? Are they blowing out? Because it bloody feels like they're blowing out, but you guys are having endless rain up in Queensland, so those builds have definitely blown out. Please be the back end of that.
Yeah, well, there's a lady by the name of Lucy Ellis who is the Assistant Governor to Philip Lowe at the Reserve Bank of Australia. She gave a keynote speech last week about the state of our economy, and she actually referenced that she felt one of the things that they were monitoring which had an impact on the economy was the time it takes to build a home. And she had data that the Reserve Bank of Australia collects. I'm not sure how they collect it, but her data said that the average time of a build 12 months ago was 6 months, and now it's 9 months. And I
wonder when they factor that from. Like, is that when they're on site putting down the surveyor's pegs, or is it when they actually sort of take the deposit and lay the slab? Probably not slab. That might be a little bit too late, but that'd be interesting.
I don't know. I wouldn't have thought you could build a home in 9 months at the moment from when you take the deposit. Do you? Like, surely no way.
Yeah, I reckon in SA you could, but only a handful of the very organised builders that know what they're doing, but perhaps not on average. That would be the exceptional builders, certainly not the average, but I do believe it's possible. Yeah.
I imagine they go off Australian Bureau of Statistics data, and Sam, the research man, has given us some data which I was curious how would they have found this out. And the most accurate or the way that I reckon they're determining this is the Australian Bureau of Statistics take account every single month of how many houses are under construction. And that number's increased from 140,000 this time last year to 220,000 just under today. So I imagine that the ABS must in some way keep a tally of the total houses that are under construction and identify how long they're under construction for. Yeah. But to blow out by 50% in 12 months is quite high. And I'd imagine it's from at the very least when they're getting the block ready to start pouring the slab, if not the slab itself.
Yeah.
9 months, still not a hugely long time. I think it's certainly workable for people, but definitely blown out. And I did find it interesting that the Reserve Bank are looking at that and seeing that as a bit of a productivity measure, for the overall economy.
Yeah. Well, usually it's the HIA that report those kinds of things. We probably should mention, as we talked about last week, not on our pod, just in person, that unfortunately we saw a smaller home builder, Pivotal Homes, collapse last week. They had 103 homes under construction with some 170, 180 also in the pipeline. So, look, sad for those all of those building and all those that have lost their build contract. But I guess the lighter side is that they had relatively few. But that does not lessen the blow for those who are going to be a little bit stuck. But hopefully they will have some claims cards with QBC up there in Queensland.
Yeah, well, we did actually have a bunch of people write in, a handful, asking about Pivotal Homes and just builders more generally and how you avoid the risk. And I wasn't sure whether we deal with it here because I saw the notes on Pivotal or in the Q&A. I think you can't avoid the risk. That's not possible.
Yeah.
You can try and minimise the risk, and the best way to do that is to try and not buy too far off the plan. I think we gave similar advice when Privium hit the wall back into last year.
Yep.
But I think, you just got to sort of, as best you can, try and go with a builder who's got a good track record, who's sort of been through challenging times, and is a pretty stable business. And I don't know, what else do you sort of, think is the way to minimise the risk?
I think the most immediate way to minimise your risk is what I'm seeing now, and a couple of guys in our office, some young guys, their builds were priced in the middle of last year. And that was market then. It might have been $1,200 or $1,300 a square metre. Today, to deliver that same product, you're looking at, for some cases, even $500 more per square metre. These builders, they cannot hold that fixed price. So they're either going to hit you up for variations if they're only just starting now and they priced it last June, July, or they're not going to be able to start. So if you have got something priced last year, at any time, and even if it was in December, because we're bloody 6 months into 2022 already, it would be wise to, write to us, actually. If there's a way that we can give you some guidance, we will absolutely do that. If you're in Southeast Queensland, South Australia or Melbourne, we can absolutely refer the builders that we use and we work really closely with. But yeah, anything that was priced with a 2021 date on it, you need to revisit that because I don't think they're going to be able to build that thing. That's pretty much all I got to say on that.
Yeah, and you're right. In every state, you're covered by insurance, but the insurance only covers the refund of your deposit, or in certain states, and I'll use Queensland as an example because that's where Pivotal Homes were based. There was 170 homes under construction. The QBCC, which is the Queensland Building and Construction Commission, they'll finish the job provided the cost to finish the job doesn't exceed 30% of what's remaining in the contract. So you'd like to think that would be possible. Yeah. But in a high inflation environment, it might not be. I mean, I don't know. I'd say you're up for at least 100, maybe even $200 a square metre more from a cost to build to finish a job if you part way through. And the reason for that is you've often got trades that haven't been paid, suppliers that haven't been paid, or you've got work that's sort of half done that has to be fixed and start again. And then you've got the inconvenience and the risk for the builder who's taking it on that doesn't know what's sort of been done on the job. job.
Yep.
So 100, 200 bucks a square metre, that's what? On a 200 square metre home, 20 to 40 grand. It really hurts.
Yep. I'd say just look right to us if you're not sure. We don't have all of the answers, and you know what? Nobody does. But we can at least perhaps give you some guidance. Because you mentioned inflation just before. Is there anything to note about the US inflation that perhaps we can apply here or learn a little bit from?
Yeah, inflation's everywhere at the moment, and Australia's inflation is 5%.
It's not in my bank account, bud.
No, no one's banking. Well, not in that extremity. Certainly not as much as inflation today. But wages going up slightly, but not as much as inflation. The US has led the charge. It's been experiencing the worst inflation of most countries out there. Interestingly, though, inflation came back over the past month. So the US announced their inflation data the other day, coming at 6.6% in March, now 6.3% for the year. So it's come back slightly, still very high, but I think it should give us a little bit of optimism that maybe it's not getting any worse out there, which is a nice thing. Okay, so because we've been looking at rents lately as a way to partly offset this inflation that's really hurting most Australians at the moment.
Yeah.
However, we've been looking at inflation over the past 12 months, and whilst it has been high, SQM done a fantastic little study on rents over the past 5 years to look at which markets have seen the biggest increases in rents in that time. And some interesting stuff, isn't there?
These some of them are pretty extraordinarily high. I don't know why SQM has chosen these 15, but let's just say they are the top 15 performers in terms of rents. And I guess when I say performers, we are talking about rental properties. So I guess the real winners are the owners, the investors. But number one, Gold Coast, and it's the houses specifically on the Gold Coast. Their last 12-month change has been just over 18%, but their 5-year change is 40%, so averaging 7% per year.
Yeah, and Gold Coast
for the
houses,
last 5.
And I was going to say Gold Coast houses up by 18%, but Gold Coast units up by 14% in the last 12 months and a third over the 5 years. So Gold Coast, full stop, has got a bit of a rental problem clearly
Big time,
at the moment
big time.
and has done for some time.
Not a lot of new supply coming on in terms of houses that I'm aware of, but a lot of apartment supply. So that's going to be really interesting. In fact, I think I heard, I don't want to quote it, but I'm going to anyway because, but I think there's something like 10,000 apartments in the pipeline on the Gold Coast. Am I completely fudging that up?
That's potentially right. I don't know.
Potentially. We will caveat that by potentially. Interestingly, coming in second and third, the other biggest rental increases were Hobart. So number 2, Hobart houses, and number 3, Hobart units. So 38% is their 5-year change for houses, and 36%, nearly 37% for their units. Maybe it's the same thing here. Like we've had that rush to the regions in the last 2 years in COVID and lockdowns has significantly added, and these places just don't have supply, or they didn't have excess supply, and perhaps they didn't have enough stuff in the pipeline pre-COVID to deliver during COVID when everybody was just like, we want that lifestyle lockdown.
And Newcastle and Canberra houses in both of those places round out the top 5, both higher than 30% over the last 4 years, which 30% in 5 years rather, 30% in 5 years is so high. When you think about it, it's pretty much means that your rents increase by a third in the space of 5 years. It'd be hard to cop.
Hard to cop, but, like I look at some of these tenants and I go, well, you're better off staying and paying more money than probably forking out to move and then paying more elsewhere, or possibly, worst case scenario, having a bit of time of homelessness relative to the discussion. But I guess moving over, and this is relative to the rent hikes because we've seen those mostly in those big regions and some of the smaller capitals. But the regions are still on fire, and Tim Lawless at RP Data still reckons they're on track for a 10% rise this year. And what do we got? Okay, let's say 7 full months left of the year. That's crazy.
Well, and interestingly, he says it's all because of a lack of supply. No property owners are selling. In fact, he goes as far as to say that the total number of homes for sale is 40% below the 5-year average and 20% below where it was a year ago. So there's just not a lot of options. And clearly...
And on the other side of the coin, sorry, Cuz, to cut you off, but then we've got sales activity is 20% higher. So we've got the lowest listings average over 5 years and then more sales. So supply and demand shift is way off. And he said the same thing, clearly a disconnect between supply and demand. So it's the old S&D.
And then finally, the last one that I shared with you during the week was a study that Michael Matusik, who has been on this podcast before, did. And it was a study comparing first home buyers, owner-occupiers and investors in terms of what proportion of sales or purchases they make up as the buyers. But he's compared it on established and new. And the numbers are quite different, aren't they? Like, it surprised me just how different they are. For example, investors, they only buy 20% of all established dwellings, whereas they buy about 30% of new. And then the opposite's sort of true for the owner-occupier. They buy 70% of the established property and 60% of new dwellings. I don't know if that surprised you or not. But a little bit surprising to me.
It did a little bit, but I found it interesting how he's compared 2020, 2021 and 2022 and then looked at established versus new. The biggest one that I guess it's the minority that gets the biggest attention in the media, and that's your foreign buyer. But from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, established and new, they're relatively consistent. 5% in 2020 established and new, 5% in 2021 established and new, but they're actually a relative buyer in the new year that we find ourselves in now, 10%. We're only 5 and a bit months into the year. So that one was probably the biggest standout for me, but all in all, just good data. Just good data.
And surprising, just to round out too, surprising to see just how much first-home buyers made up of the market in 2021 with all of those massive incentives floating around there. They were 30% of all established dwellings and 35% of all new dwellings, whereas they're normally 10% below on both of those. Yeah. So we saw a massive spike of first-home buyers last year. And hence why I think maybe it gets played up a little bit too much, how hard it is on first-home buyers. The incentives that have been out there clearly do work to get people into the market that otherwise might not have been able to.
I agree, and the only thing I'll say to add to that is, but we got them in an environment with the lowest interest rates in history.
Hey, and one last one, by the way. I meant to ask you this before we went on this afternoon. 1 in 10 jobs are swapping at the moment. You had similar data on this, and it may be that I'm regurgitating an article which we've already spoken to, but did you also point out that 1 in 10 workers over the past year have swapped jobs? There was a number similar to that, if not.
Yeah. I said, Michael Page, who are a big recruiter here in Melbourne, quoted that some 46 people this year will be leaving their job or are planning on leaving their job. So it's actually quite a lot more than 1 in 10 workers. But, I mean, we don't really know their sample data. But they are calling it the Great Resignation year, the year where unemployment is so low you can go anywhere you want. Within reason.
Well, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, now, admittedly, they're reporting on February data, and I'm pretty sure it only came out the other day. So,
my days.
As with everything that the Australian Bureau of Statistics do, there's a massive lag.
And friggin' behind.
They reckon 1.3 million people, which is 1 in 10 of the total workforce in Australia today, changed their job in the last 12 months. That's 330,000 more than were changing jobs during the pandemic, and more than 250,000 more than last year.
Are they changing industries? We don't know.
I have to get back to you on that. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Phone a friend. Leave a message and phone a friend.
And women were changing jobs more than men.
Probably better employment opportunities to earn more money in sooner. I've certainly got a few girlfriends.
More in demand.
Bring them on.
Yeah, bring it on.
I've got
Girl
a few
power.
friends who have maximised this in the last few months, and I say, proud of you. Go for it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Seriously though, why not?
Yeah, get at it.
Get at it. Is there anything else you want to cover? Before we sign off. We haven't caught up in a while. Should we catch up?
Yeah, look, the only other thing that I thought was really interesting and fantastic for homeowners is ANZ cut their variable rates during the week. They said they're struggling to get owner-occupier loans, so they've cut their variable rate as a way to compete against the likes of CBA and others. So whilst we've got the cash rate going up, we've also seen the variable rate be cut by ANZ, although it only applies to new customers. Stitch up.
Interesting. So you can't refinance internally and get the benefits. You what? I don't know about you, ANZ. I'm just going to leave it there. I don't know about you. What are we
What's
looking
the
at?
old loyalty tax, right? The loyalty tax that often we have spoken about. I don't know why it exists. You have a loyalty to the bank and you actually pay more in your interest rate for it. They say it's up to 0.4% with the likes of ANZ and others that you're paying.
It's the old thing, because they're probably – but it's the old thing. They're probably whacking you with refinance fees or new buyer fees or whatever. They're like – I always just feel skeptical that I want to read all of the line items and what I'm paying for outside the bloody interest rate. It's not all about the interest rate. It could be like, if you want to come over here, it cost $3,000.
Oh, and sorry. One last thing. I'm not sure where you're at on the run sheet.
I'm going to get you a T-shirt that says one last thing.
One last thing.
You say it too much.
One last thing. What? Have you heard about the baby formula shortage in the United States at the moment?
No, but I've got someone chasing my sister-in-law for baby formula.
Yeah, well, in the United States,
Australia,
there is 3 multinational conglomerates. There's Abbott's is the big one, but then there's also Mead Johnson and Nestle. A lot of people would be familiar with Nestle as a big brand. Abbott's have got a factory in Michigan which has had to shut down for 3 months, which has caused a massive shortage of infant formula throughout the US. So much so that an Australian company called Bubs has been given the first FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration Board of the United States. They've been given approval to supply 1.25 million tins of baby formula into the United States over the next 2 or 3 months.
How are they going to do that when we can't bloody employ anyone in Australia? It's good times, but it's tough times, I'll tell you that.
American parents spent $4.3 billion on infant formula last year. It's a segment that's growing by 5% per annum. So I'm not sure why, whether, I'd imagine it must be as an alternative to breastfeeding, you'd assume. The market.
It's as well as. It's interesting you're taking a big liking to the baby formula, because you're actually weirdly excited about it.
The Bubs share price is up 66% for the month because of this announcement. It's huge.
Yeah, Bubs. Your excitement is unmatched.
I thought it was really interesting. Anyway, maybe I've been brainwashed by my dietitian wife. Who knows?
Let's wrap it up there, shall we? One last thing. No, one last thing. No, one last thing. No.
No last thing.
There's no more last things, and also you're banned. You're banned from saying that because everyone is being misled. Guys, if you like our pod, tell all your friends about it. James has one friend, but I think tell all your friends. Burn them out. Burn them all. It's like pyramid marketing. You just want to burn them all out and do what you can.
Well, you know what? One last thing. If you enjoyed Alex's mood, tempo, and overall vibe today doing this on the afternoon record, let us know. If you felt the vibe was better on this podcast than others, let us know and we'll shift the time frame. Likewise, if you feel we're better in the morning, let us know. We love to get the feedback. So morning, afternoon, hit us up on the gram or email. And if we get the feedback, might have a new time slot. Who knows?
Oh, my days. If you got questions, send them through. And, of course, as always, we're going to put quick shots on tomorrow and drop the questions in the show notes. If you're not sure you want to listen, give it a pop. Pop it a listen. Pop it a listen. Give it a pop. Pop it.
What a joy.
Pop it up. Pop.
Wrap it up.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, okay, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.